All right, so keep in mind this was the Codex. Um, so OpenAI has updated Codex, which is their agentic coding model, and it is now powered by a variation of GPT-5. So this is kind of exciting because based off of using this for the past few hours, as well as some comments I've seen from folks who have used it as well, it seems like it may be a rather impressive upgrade to this agentic coding feature or model, whatever you'd like to refer to this as. So I'm not going to really spend a lot of time here verbosely reading to you the text on the screen, although I can't help but notice that that does seem to encompass a lot of the AI, ML, YouTube. I'm just not really a fan of that. I think it's a waste of time. But with that, the important part here that I do want to mention is that they say we're releasing GPT-5 Codex, a version of GPT-5 further optimized for agentic coding in Codex. So this is a new generation of model powering this, and that is rather exciting, so feel free to subscribe. Now, as we're going to get into this, there are a couple of things that I would like to just quickly mention off the top, just to make sure we have all of the pertinent and background information for today's testing. We are going to be using this through the website, just kind of right here. So chatgpt.com/codex. So I believe this is Codex Web, and they do mention right here that Codex Web uses GPT-5 Codex, so it is updated to the newer version. They do mention here that it is not currently available via API, so there are obviously various ways that folks will use this, but fortunately it does seem the way we will be testing it today is updated to the newest model. Beyond that, and something I do have to say was kind of vindicating here, is they have a prompting guide for best prompting the agent depending on the scenario you would like to embark it upon. And all the way at the bottom, they mention here, try open-ended prompts. And I just felt very vindicated and warm inside when I read that, because sometimes I do get flack for like some of my lackluster prompts for the web OS and things like that. But from now on, I will be referring to those as open-ended prompt testing. So I was just happy to see that right there. Aside from that, the only other thing that we are going to be doing here is basically tasking this with a medium complexity task to basically go ahead and take this social robot of mine, which we can see right here, and instead of having kind of like a face PNG and a mouth PNG, we're going to task it with a few different artistic changes as well as some performance optimizations and enhancements. Now for the prompt, we're going to give Codex to actually go ahead and make these changes. We're just giving it a little bit of pertinent information about the actual repository and what it contains. We're telling it that the option or ability to have a face image and mouth sprite should be replaced with a custom face that Codex must create. Beyond that, it should have looping animations and actual eye movement and blinking, as we would like some more immersiveness than just a simple face PNG like that is relatively static and definitely aged out in the year 2025. Beyond that, we're also asking it to make a new mouth image that is somewhat synced up with the actual speech of the robot in whichever way it decides to go ahead and implement that. Beyond that, we're giving it a little more kind of like coding specific tasks and just asking it to perform some performance optimizations, saying that think of this as like the chat loop of these three specific things right here. Run a bit slowly on the Jetson Aura Nano, which is the device that this chatbot runs on. So we want to go ahead and just make that a little faster or snappier if it has the ability to do so. Finally, something very simple is just changing the model that is actually used for chat to Gemma 3270. And then we're telling it to basically do anything else you would like as you see fit, which could be referred to as an open-ended prompt. So with that, I do have the specific repository set right here that we will be having this work in, and we can paste our prompt right in and go ahead and just click code. And as it is actually working on the task, you can click right here and we will get a little bit more pertinent information about what specifically is going on. Basically just what we'll see contained within here. Now, this is definitely not something that we're going to sit through verbosely and watch the entire time. I will inevitably time-lapse this, as while this isn't really a very intricate task to actually perform these modifications, I would guess this will probably take between 10 and 20 minutes just based off of playing with this and seeing, getting a proper feel for its speed. So with that, I'll time lapse this and then we'll get to see some interesting things, hopefully. So in right around 15 minutes, it finished, and we can just see a summary of the actual changes it implemented. Something I do like is that it almost kind of cites its sources, but what I mean by that is when you hover over one of these, it actually shows you the code snippet in which it did whatever it's referring to. Now, the next thing we're going to notice is something that I'm actually rather impressed with, because it actually went ahead and swapped the entire kind of chatbot logic to something that would be more prudent to run on a low resource device like the Jetson or a Nano Super. So it mentions right here that it's swapped over for WebRTC VAD, or voice activity detection, faster whisper transcription. Now this is one that is impressive to me, to the point where I actually had this tab open right here for the actual faster whisper GitHub repository, because this is something that I did use in the Bob the Sentient Washing Machine. If you saw that, thank you. But this just allowed all of these things to run faster, even on a Raspberry Pi 5. And this is, of course, speech transcription. So the fact that it actually knew to go ahead and swap to something that will actually work, that will be a faster, better replacement for what we had, is quite impressive to me, because that goes beyond just actually like modifying the code in general, but it actually had some level of understanding of other options and picked one that is a better option than what was actually in the default repository. So I am impressed to see that. And obviously we have some things here. It did also mention like the procedural face with blinking eyes, roaming pupils, and a responsive mouth animation, so the robot no longer depends on static image assets. And it talks about the normalized amplitudes for lip sync. So basically what this means to me, and what will likely be the implementation here, is the mouth will probably scale or morph depending on the amplitude of the actual like sound that's being made from this device's speaker. To put it unscientifically, it will make more sense when we see it. And beyond that, it changed the chat loop to use the new speech components and switched to Gemma 3270M, which is very simple to do. I will actually need to go ahead and download that model through Ollama on the Jetson, but we can see a kind of overview of all of the things we received right here in terms of the changes. And the next step is actually to just go ahead and click the Create PR button right here, and I will have to hop over to my other computer where I'm signed in to actually merge it. I did go ahead and just log into GitHub on this machine, and we can see the pull request that it did create right here, where you can just also get like a hyperlink to the specific task that it performed here. So that would obviously, I believe, only work if you were actually logged into Codex. Let's just make sure, because yeah, okay. Just want to check, you never know. And obviously it just gives kind of like a summary of what we saw right here in the actual pull request, and then we can go ahead and merge it. With that, let's just go back to the actual simple and very light repository right here and actually put some of these scripts on the device and see if they work. So this is actually running on my social robot, and basically, like, I don't know how well it will show on camera, but I put a little mount for the Jetson to actually just be like statically mounted on this. So, and obviously with the bright studio lights and the fact that I ran out of the actual plastic I use for the face, I'm just using printer paper. It wouldn't really be very easy to actually see the face of this robot. So please keep that in mind for this part, but I will obviously go and I'll film it in low light so we actually get to see what this put together. But first and foremost, I actually need to transfer these files over to the Jetson, which is on and running, which I can do from this machine just through SSH. So now we're just installing all of the requirements from this new repository that Codex had worked on, just to make sure that they do actually all load and work properly, as that is definitely a very important part of whether or not this did successfully implement the changes. And I'm happy to report that they did all kind of install and work properly. So for now, that is a good thing. Our next step is, because this is a private repo, I don't want to just git clone it, because then I have to log in and stuff. So I might just manually make the directory here, even if it's kind of like clunky to do that. I almost forgot to download the Gemma model that is going to be used for the chat here, as obviously Gemma 3270 million is very lightweight, so it will be rather performant on edge low resource devices. So first and foremost, we're running it for the first time to see if we see any immediate errors. Okay, you can't see it right now, but the face it drew, I will, it was disturbing. Okay, so we have an issue where eSpeak is not installed, which is the very simple and robotic sounding text-to-speech that it did opt to put in this in the interest of being very quick. So, okay, we seemingly are. All right, there we go. So it didn't put that in the dependencies, which is a bit frustrating, as that is kind of a misstep. So that wasn't really the fault of the model, as that's not something you can put in the requirements because it's not a package you would install through pip. But it would have been nice for it to kind of just modify the actual README just to say ensure that you actually have eSpeak installed and here's how to do it, which I'm probably just nitpicking, but regardless, these are things, you know, that one would pick up on if using this. All right. Now, and that face it made was quite funny, so we'll just run this once more. And regardless of actually being able to see anything here, oh my God. Hey, what's up? How are you? So we'll...
Okay, I'm ready to be your cheerful robotic companion.
Let's
get started. What's on your mind?
Significantly faster.
Hey, just doing my best to be a cheerful and helpful robotic companion. How are you doing today? Smiling face with smiling eyes. Alright, here's what we'll do. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Okay, let's get started.
Okay, so
I'm ready to...
One of the issues I'm noticing here first and foremost is that it seems to be hearing itself, or it's getting stuck in a conversational loop without really stopping. The VAD does not seem to be set properly. In addition to that, the face that it did implement, which I'll just put a picture of, it is sideways. So those are things that will need to be fixed. And now basically these are things I'm going to ask Codex to go ahead and then just apply these changes as well. So we can hopefully use this better. But I will say initially, this is so much faster than it was before. It's shocking. So from a pure performance improvement perspective, it absolutely nailed it there. Even if we're having some issues where it seems to be hearing itself and responding to itself, those are just kind of like probably sensitivity values that need to be adjusted. So I've just described the issues right here, and we're going to have it code these. I don't know if you can hear the fan that's running right now, but I'll just go ahead and turn it off in case it was coming through on the microphone. And being that they did actually specifically say you can use open-ended prompts here, I do feel a little more comfortable just going ahead and giving it a light bit of information in terms of what needs to be fixed. So before, this did take a while for this environment setup to work, so I'm guessing it may as well this time. But beyond that, I do actually want to just kind of peek through some of the code here. In 15 minutes, once more, it went ahead and supposedly has remedied these issues. First and foremost, it just added rotation and display size controls to the face renderer. So basically, it will appear clockwise without distorting the animation, which is good. Interestingly, to actually handle the issue where it seemed to be kind of picking up its own speech and then responding to itself, causing like a disastrous loop, we can see right here that it paused microphone capture while speaking, cleared buffers, and skipped initial frames when resuming voice activity detection to keep the robot from transcribing its own audio output, which is good. Interestingly, though, it actually went a step further here to try to combat that issue, which I'm impressed with, where it's actually going to be checking the speech to text that it says. So it's probably easier to just read this verbosely. Ignored speech-to-text hypotheses that closely match the previous bot reply, so the dialogue loop no longer self-triggers on echoes. So from what I see right here, it's essentially checking to see if the speech-to-text is going to match what was previously generated by the robot or something like that, just to stop it from actually trying to speak over itself. So that is kind of interesting. All right, let's just go ahead now and click Update Branch. And when we are ready to view the pull request, we can do so. So fortunately, at least the pull request went through. So we have conflicts that must be resolved. So this is something I had mentioned earlier, I believe, in using this, that I noticed if you try to trigger it on a subsequent run after having made changes already, it will sometimes put like a bunch of random slop in here that should not exist. So let's just go ahead and see if that is the case here as well. See, so this is what I'm seeing here, which is an issue where it's just putting random things like this into the code that it's actually trying to merge, which is causing conflicts, and obviously, therefore, it can't actually be merged. And we're seeing a lot of it right here, which is really kind of an issue. And this is something I noticed as well seeing it earlier. And this occurred in 3 of the scripts right here, which it's just... that is definitely an issue that needs to be resolved, and it is quite frustrating because it will basically break the ability to actually use this beyond just like a single run for a single thing. But maybe that's how you're supposed to use it. I don't know. But I'm going to I'm going to just have to go ahead and manually remove all of these things because trying to get it to fix them will not work, as I tried earlier with something else and it did not work. So, all right.
Okay, I'm ready. Yes.
All right, so unfortunately, it just kind of is still having issues. I will say, though, just in side-eyeing it and seeing the face animations, they're actually quite impressive considering what one would expect. So basically, I think all I'm going to do now, because I unfortunately don't have the time to devote to this to get it running perfectly, I did just want to kind of demonstrate Codex and some of its capabilities and if it's good or not being updated. But I will just kind of have to fix a couple of things here, which I'll probably just do manually because it'll be faster than having it change like a few basically like real simple coordinate settings. So, all right, so keep in mind this was the Codex. So the eyes actually do move and blink. The smiley is, I suppose, a default thing one would do for a face. It is quite funny. I suppose the last thing we'll do is just say one thing to it, and then that will probably conclude the video. It has to be dark to see this, and especially because I don't have the face plastic that I normally have for these. So it's using printer paper, which doesn't let as much light through, so it's harder to see. But regardless, what do you want to do tonight, buddy? And then it will respond, hopefully.
All right, buddy. Tomorrow's a great night. Let's get those lights on and watch some amazing shows. Night with Stars.
And then it seemed kind of happy. Also, I mean, I could... What's up, robot? I mean, there's only so much I can say.
Greetings. I'm here to assist with everything from crafting delightful robot-themed gifts to scheduling your day. Just let me know what you need. Robot face.
So overall, that's probably going to conclude the video. I just wanted to do a demonstration of Codex with GPT-5. Overall, it impressively made this latency much better than the original, which was horribly slow. This is, I won't say like instant, very immersive, but it is overall a rather good result. So with that, that's going to conclude the Codex testing video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.